Everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're going to spend the next couple of segments talking to Representative Jerome Zerang. He's, of course, representing District 52. And in Baton Rouge, we're joined him by Zoom, Skype, whatever, FaceTime, whatever we're doing. But we're gonna, obviously, you got a special session going on, so we'll talk about that in a second. But before we do, the Menhaden conservation outcome and the Pogy boats that a lot of people were concerned about. They were getting a little too close to the shore. Louisiana had some, I guess, I don't know, they were generous as to where some of these boats could go compared to some other states. But our Wildlife and Fisheries and the Pogy Boats Association have kind of made a couple of rules. If you want to fill us in on that?
Sure, and it's not necessarily being generous. The fact of the matter is, Louisiana, the harvest of menhaden in the Gulf of Mexico, 80% comes from the coast of Louisiana. The unfortunate reality is we had no requirements or statutes or laws that address the rules and regulations for the menhaden industry. Most of it has been just a handshake, gentleman's agreement that says we will stay so far off the beach, or if we release or our nets break or we have a fish kill or something, we'll pay a fine. But a lot of those things weren't enforced. So and because of that, Representative Ogeron, several other legislators prior to Representative Ogeron have tried to pass legislation to address that and put some restrictions on the menhaden industry. Again, nobody wants to stop it. It's a great industry. If you look at how important menhaden are, they're significant. If we didn't have menhaden harvest, your price of chicken would go up, the price of beef. It's a critical component in feeds. Also, the oils are used for many products. So no one wants to stop or hinder the menhaden industry. But the fact of the matter is, again, we produce the most, and there's other states, Mississippi, Texas, all the other Gulf states have restrictions as to how the menhaden can harvest their catch. So they've come to some agreement, and what's going to happen is the menhaden boats, and this is an agreement between the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, the menhaden industry, and recreational fishermen, that they will maintain a 1 mile barrier off the coast. A half-mile barrier off the coast for most of the state, with a mile on Holly Beach and 3 miles off of Grand Isle and Grand Terre in that area. There's also going to be reporting requirements if there is a release or a fish kill. They're going to have to report those. If they don't, then there's going to be significant consequences. And enforcement of fines will now be imposed, which previously they kind of just looked the other way and didn't impose those fines. So this is definitely a step forward in addressing those issues to where at least it addresses a lot of the concerns of the recreational industry, although they wanted it further. The menhaden industry is not happy either. Again, like most agreements, if both sides aren't happy, it's typically a pretty good agreement.
Right.
So that's kind of where we are right now, but at least they've come to some consensus in resolving this issue.
Yeah, when you look at it, and a lot of people were upset about this, and those boats are important to important industry, certainly for our area. Not as locally owned as it once was either, but yeah, that's a good compromise. And where do the teeth come in when enforcing these new provisions?
Well, they've increased the fines. They've also increased the reporting requirements as well. If there's fish kills or if there is a release, sometimes if they catch too much and they have to release them, it causes fish kills or some other things. So they have to report those. And it is definitely something that needed to be addressed. And this seems like a pretty good workable compromise, but also there's some teeth in it. So if in fact they do slip up, and that was part of the problem last time. There was, within that agreement, they said they'd be stay a quarter of a mile off, and a lot of times they were coming right up on the beach.
Right.
Or if there was other problems, they were coming real close to Grand Isle or Grand Terre. And so there will be more enforcement and stricter penalties if in fact they violate this agreement.
Yeah, I understand. And then you can always go further from there. So let's talk about what's happening right now. We've got about 2 minutes in this segment, Jerome. But you're up at the special session on crime. What do you guys hope to accomplish? And can you fill us in on the framework? I know there's like 24 things that the governor had put in that he wants you guys to look at.
Well, there's a lot of things to address in terms of some of what the governor believes, or either lax enforcement or increasing penalties or requirements into enforcement of laws that he'd like to enact this legislative session. There's going to be bills to address lowering the age to where 17-year-olds, if they commit a serious crime, can be tried as adults. They're also looking at, there's a significant amount of interest in and around New Orleans. There's no doubt that New Orleans is important to the state. It's important both for, recreational aspects, people coming in, tourism, all the other things. New Orleans is a great city. You agree? I mean, you live
Absolutely.
in New Orleans. Yeah, it's a great city.
Don't go as much as I used to, though.
Yeah, well, I know, but because of people don't feel safe.
Right.
So there's a lot of, we can talk about it in the next segment as well, but there's some things that are going to do, that the legislature are going to pass to try to address some of those issues as well.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of things, and we're talking about there's a couple other things in there too, and like I said, we'll talk about it in just a second. But expanding the death penalty and the ways you can do it, even though we hadn't had a death penalty case carried out here, and I think since the 80s, pretty much, or the 90s. Juvenile, 17-year-olds, maybe reclassifying them, the sheriff's pay raise, those kind of things. And concealed weapons, those are all things that you guys are going to be voting on. So let's take this break. We'll come back and we'll touch on all those topics when we come back right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're talking with Jerome Zerang, of course, the representative from District 52. Special session on crime right now he's going through. And you guys have, 7 days this session, Jerome?
No, we go to the 6th of March.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So,
and then we start regular session on the 11th. So we're pretty much here till June, beginning of June, when regular session ends.
Yeah, nice part-time gig you got there. Were you there?
Yeah, I've never worked so hard in a part-time job in my life.
No kidding. So let's talk about the crime bill and what the governor specifically, what some of the things. And I was saying I was surprised to see the concealed weapon permit where you wouldn't need a permit anymore, that anybody could carry that. I know a lot of people, when they first see that, are shocked and surprised. Any chance that passes?
Well, the governor, in his opening comments on Monday, has indicated, and it's true, the legislature has passed open carry the past 2 years. I know we've passed the bill twice, but it was vetoed by the governor. Governor Landry has said, well, it was vetoed in the past, but he is going to sign it. So I would assume it's definitely going to happen because he's already indicated he's going to sign it. And the legislature, both the House and the Senate, has passed it before. So and since we have super majorities, I think that's going to go through.
Yeah, there's several states that are doing that right now. So this is not something that's you just wouldn't have to pay for a lot of these fees that are associated with it now. What are some of the other bills that you think it'll go through? And as I said, maybe you can walk us through the mechanism. It's the governor put 24 different things that he'd like addressed. I don't know if those are going to be individual bills all in one bill. Can you explain exactly what this session does?
Right. In a regular session, legislators can introduce as many bills as they want on various topics. We have fiscal sessions that are specific you can only introduce 5 bills outside of fiscal matters. But in special session, they are specific to the call of the session, where the governor has to specifically identify. Sometimes they write them pretty broad, which gives a little bit leeway. But for the most part, legislation has to be specific to the call. If it's if it's related to the death penalty, a crime, you can't just introduce a bill on something different than other than what's outside of the call. So in the call, he's talked about crime issues, reducing the age for juveniles, increasing housing, or having places for juveniles to go to, institutions for juveniles to go to. There's also significant interest in looking at expanding or providing a troop. It's called Troop NOLA, where they'll have an additional state police troop in New Orleans, which is going to definitely improve safety. And there's a lot of interest, and there'll be bills specific to that to address how state police can both support that and both financially. That we've passed some bills in appropriations today. We passed significant measures, I think $13 million that are going to go to state police for various measures, and also with the Attorney General granting her authority, fiscal authority, that if they collect additional funds, they can use that to help prosecute issues. I know the Attorney General is looking at helping the New Orleans District Attorney. They have an agreement on trying to prosecute crimes there. So there are things that are going on, a lot of focus on New Orleans, but a lot of things statewide too as well, to reduce or impact crime throughout the state.
Well, I remember they had talked about Baton Rouge and Shreveport too at one time, and everybody's like, well, why are we only talking about these few areas? But yeah, you're right. And when you talk about juvenile crime, and I know that was a big issue, just the one that is like in West Wego here, Bridge City, there was a lot of kids escaping from there. The one in Baton Rouge, a lot of kids were escaping from those two. But if they can move 17-year-olds maybe to a more secure facility, it would alleviate a lot of the overcrowding in those places as well. So juvenile crime seems to be a big focus of this.
Yeah, and the unfortunate reality is crime is being committed by younger individuals, and serious crimes as well. In fact, that it appears that some of the either gangs or people who are trying to utilize or exploit younger kids are getting them to commit crimes, knowing that they will not have as harsh a sentence because of the fact that they are juveniles. And I think that was some of the concern that is going to try to be addressed in the this special legislative session as well.
I saw Point Capilla recently up at New Roads. They were trying a couple of shootings up there under a RICO Act. And is that part of what the governor, and I guess they were trying to get tougher on crime to maybe use more of those weapons against some of these gangs, if you will, to prosecute them in a RICO as opposed to just individual crimes?
Well, maybe not necessarily specific to that, but allowing the Attorney General's office in terms of a broader approach to prosecuting and working with local district attorneys. A lot of the district attorneys are here, and there are measures that are being proposed that will assist local district attorneys in enforcement and working on trying to address both recidivism and all the things that plague the criminal justice system right now, that hopefully will, all intended to try to reduce crime, or at least provide greater penalties to, I guess, disincentivize their desire to do that.
Right. So wrap us up here with the last 30 seconds here, Jerome. And so what comes out of this? Do we know what will happen in March when you guys wrap up? What comes out of a session like this?
Well, whatever passes. If it doesn't
right.
pass, it doesn't come out. So, but there's a lot of support. I think for the most part, based upon some of the actions that the legislature has taken in terms of reporting, not holding bills over, reporting them directly to committees, the votes that they're getting, it appears that most of the bills and the governor's suite of bills that he's proposing are probably going to make it through this session. So I think he has broad support in both House and the Senate. And I think most of those measures, again, that are being, as we talked about, reducing crime, getting the state troopers in New Orleans. There's also funding that's going to provide National Guard to go to Texas to assist in their efforts. I think that's going to go through too as well. So I think for the most part, most of his suite of bills will probably go through and be successful this special session.
All right, Jerome's ring. I guess that's what they call a honeymoon period, right, for a new governor. Right?
Yeah, we're still in that period. Right?
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, man.
Okay, Harry, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back with more Bayou Time after this.